Welcome to modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah, civilizations on the brink of self-destruction. If you are wondering what causes the fall of civilizations, it's sexual immorality. Sexual immorality creeping in and spreading like a disease. So how is it that sexual immorality becomes the ruin of civilizations? How is it that it first corrupts the soul and spreads throughout your body, to your family and to your community? What is life force, and what happens to man when he squanders it? Life force is to man what electricity is to machines. Life. When man squanders this life force by chasing sexual pleasures without restraint, he becomes a beast in thought and in character. We see this tale told in Beauty and the Beast, where a prince who lived lasciviously was cursed when he would not help an elderly lady in need because she was not beautiful. Because he was not sexually attracted to her, all compassion went out the window, and he would not give her a place to rest during the storm. The prince was cursed and transformed into a hideous beast because he was a cold-hearted prince who lacked love and compassion. The curse could only be broken if he learned to love and earn the love of another person. This is an age-old story of the outer world reflecting man's inner state of being. On the inside, he was hideous, and so it was only a matter of time until it showed up on the outside. This same tale is told in the Bible through the story of the king of Babylon, a king who allowed his arrogance and pride to become his downfall. The punishment involved Nebuchadnezzar losing his human mind for 7 years, living like a wild animal, eating grass and being driven from human society. His excessive pride in his kingdom and accomplishments, specifically the city of Babylon, led to him neglecting to acknowledge God as the source of his power. For 7 years, the king of Babylon wandered about the field as a beast. The Bible story states that God turned him into a beast. That is an allegory. What truly turns men into beasts, and we see this in real time, is the lack of the presence of God. And the presence of God, or godliness, is cultivated through chastity, or sexual purity. Sexual energy is divine and transforms men from their lower animalistic natures into wholesome individuals of upright character. When we retain the spiritual growth which occurs internally, shows up in our surroundings. This affects our family, friends, and the place where we live. Spiritual growth turns us into gentlemen over the years, into well-refined individuals. This is not just fancy, but recorded by wise men and sages. Life force is to the body what sap is to the apple, connected to the tree. Remove the stalk, and in a matter of days the apple rots. Life force is the electricity making alive. It is the breath of God which vitalizes. When a man constantly ejaculates, life force, or divine power, leaves his body. Without this electricity in the form of liquid light flowing through the body, man becomes hollow and rots from the inside out. As a stagnant pond without a river feeding it begins to fester, so a body without flowing sexual energy becomes a bog for disease. If you are wondering what causes the fall of civilizations, here it is. What creeps in and spreads like a disease is sexual immorality. The old world was stern on this. The book of Corinthians states, "Flee sexual immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body, but the sexually immoral person sins against his own body." Our bodies are temples, allegorically speaking, and these temples as a whole make up a living civilization. If Hermetic philosophy is correct, that the outer world is a reflection of our combined inner states of being, it makes perfect sense that if we have defiled and rotten temples, that it will manifest itself into society. And this is how we see the erosion and crumbling away of great civilizations. An inward plague wreaking havoc on the outer plane. Sexual immorality is not an innocent act. It is the literal wasting away of your life force that fills your body with light, light which enlightens, light which brings clarity to your thoughts and life. Without this light, the Stoics and philosophers begin to dwindle. Moral character fades. Brilliant inventions brought about through the intent of uplifting society gets replaced by what one can get from society. Without light, little by little, society degrades till not a stone is standing upon another. The spilling away of your life force for sexual perversion is a crime against your humanity, resulting in men which are more like beasts than they are like gods. A society prevalent with a lack of morals is the result of our spirits being drained away. The culprit responsible for the diminishing of our spirits is sexual perversion unrestrained. If you want to destroy a nation without war, make adultery or nudity common in the young generation. This is the nation we live within for the most part, a nation where traditions and traditional values are done away with. Like a cactus in a desert, we are people in a dry land. Like a cactus, those who practice semen retention have a hidden source of water flowing through them, invigorating them, empowering them. This inner flow of wisdom and insight from harnessing sexual energy causes us to be a source and not a river, to be a source and not an echo. A lack of spirit from spilling away your life force will make a follower out of a man, when every man should be a leader in his own right, leading his own mind and choices in the direction his own conscience sees fit, according to his own growth. We need to be wise about who we allow to influence us. This generation, for the most part, is being led to the slaughterhouse. The slaughterhouse is disguised as a sexual attraction, just to show how prevalent sexual content is in this society. Comment down below the last time sexually suggestive content was placed in front of you. I live in the boonies, so the only place I really see it is in ads while scrolling videos, specifically ads for games, where they use busty babes to get more clicks. When semen is preserved within an individual, spiritual growth occurs. That growth, inwardly sown and cultivated, always reflects itself on the screen of space. It is the nature of things. Semen retained in the body goes upwards to nourish the brain, rendering the body robust and the memory and intellect sharp. We all know by now the benefits of semen retention, how it takes you from crawling to sprinting when achieving your goals, thrusting you into the best version of yourself. In one of my first videos, I broke down spiritual esoteric knowledge passed down by the ancestors concerning the form of meditation called sexual energy retention, and how symbolism, hieroglyphs, and allegories from these fading civilizations reveal this art of meditation culturally practiced by the ancestors. 7 is a divine number. God created for 6 days and entered rest on the 7th. We create semen for 6 days, and on the 7th, a change occurs where we have harnessed enough sexual energy that we can enter flow states, where we can rest and no longer have to struggle or work hard for good ideas and a sense of well-being. This is the state of inspiration all geniuses tap into. The door to this place is shut for frequent masturbators. 7 days is the normal amount of time required by a healthy human to achieve this heightened state. Those whom have acquired experience and have a deep knowledge of energy work can achieve this state in less time. Some never even leave it. We have 7 chakras equally lining up with the 7 days of creation. Everything is cyclical and repeating here under the sun. God created for 6 days and rested on the 7th. 6 days you create sexual energy through semen retention, filling all 6 of your chakras. And on the 7th day, it is all poured into and absorbed by the 7th chakra, the 3rd eye. And so on the 7th day, you enter a state of continual flow and rest comes to you, a continual state of spring. Hyperborea, an ancient civilization, was said to always enjoy a continual state of spring. The Hyperboreans were a mythical people who lived beyond the north wind. This divinely blessed land was supposed to be perfect, with the sun shining 24 hours a day. Never the muse is absent from their ways, lyres clash and flutes cry, and everywhere maiden choruses whirling. Neither disease nor bitter old age is mixed in their sacred blood. Far from labor and battle they live. The sun shining 24 hours is most likely referring to the internal sun found within man. Their pineal glands, which is man's internal light, was shining 24/7 because they retained their life force and were full of sexual energy. The Bible has a similar story, where in paradise is no sun or moon, because God is their light. The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and the Lamb is its lamp. The Lamb refers to Christ, and Christ broken down refers to an anointing. Notice how similar the word lamb is to lamp. Just flip the last letter and you have the same word. Oil is what fuels a lamp. The pineal gland is a lamp to the body, and sexual energy is the oil that keeps it lit. Do you recall the parable of the 10 virgins? Sexual energy is what fuels this inner light and allowed civilizations of our past to be glorious. Notice in Hyperborea that spiritual light was enjoyed by all of its inhabitants. Hyperborea had both male and female citizens. Both the men and women of the civilization enjoyed spiritual light 24/7. Women also have their own form of sexual energy and can produce light within themselves as well. All it takes to fall from this flow state and losing this state of rest is releasing once. Listening to the serpent tempting you, listening to your animalistic nature, tempting you to spill your essence. That was the sin in the garden, the sin that caused them to lose their blissful abode. The blissful abode, or Eden, is an allegory to a state of being we enjoy when full of this divine energy. It is the presence of God. According to the Bible, the presence of God is considered to have departed from David after he committed adultery. In Scripture, when the presence of God departed from David, it says he wept and pleaded with God for this flow state to return. And remember, David was a shepherd, that he tended his flock and made it grow. A shepherd growing his flock is esoteric speech for a practitioner of semen retention, growing their sexual energy. I've also shown in exclusive videos how sages growing their hair is also an allegory to growing sexual energy. We see that Samson growing his hair in order to receive supernatural powers is an allegory to the enhancement sexual energy grants us. When you grow your sexual energy, you grow the presence of God within your life. Eastern philosophy refers to this heavenly presence as bliss or nirvana. In his poetry, we see David describing this feeling. A single day in your courts is better than 1,000 anywhere else. Now imagine millions of men harnessing sexual energy and being full of the presence of God, this blissful flow state where wisdom, insight, intuition, motivation, synchronicities, and so on happen. Imagine what kind of civilization we would be empowered to build. Now you know how the civilizations of old were built. Keep in mind that back in the day, according to the countless holy sources from our forefathers, not science, man used to live for thousands of years, not this pathetic cutoff lifespan we have today. Think of the effects harnessing sexual energy for millennia would have. Compare your logical thinking with what it is now compared to when you were a child, or even just 5 years ago. Now add 1,000 years. When we release our seed constantly, the supply of sexual energy fueling the pineal gland shuts off and darkness follows. We are told in a parable of 10 virgins with lamps waiting to enter a celebration. 5 were foolish and 5 were wise. Wise because they had brought extra oil for their lamps should the opening of the celebration run late into the night. The 5 unwise ran out of oil when the door opened. Only the 5 wise virgins with extra oil were allowed within the wedding feast. The lamps represent the pineal gland. The oil represents sexual energy, which lights up the pineal gland. The celebration of the lamb represents the flow state you enter on the 7th day. Foolish virgins running out of oil means they wasted their sexual energy. When this substance is poured out, the pineal gland shuts off because as a lantern is lit by oil, the pineal gland runs on sexual energy, and once it is drained, life becomes a struggle. You feel dried out and left in the darkness where there is gnashing of teeth and weeping. This simply means that existence feels shitty. You are at a low place in life, feeling down. But that's nothing to fear. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, the promised land was actually surprisingly nearby. In fact, the journey could have only taken 40 days instead of 40 years. You don't need to dwell in a depressed state for long because Eden, or rest, is 7 days away. So allow your sexual energy to grow for 7 days and paradise will be restored. When growing, your sexual energy becomes your meditation and you become planted like a tree by living waters. In this state, you never dry out and wither away. Whatever you do prospers. A leaf not withering is from a tree in a constant state of spring. An evergreen keeps its needles no matter the season. When we harness sexual energy, we can have this kind of integrity and consistency, no matter the circumstances. In the good times and the bad, this built-up reservoir of energy will see us through. Evergreens also have the pine cone, the symbol used for representing the pineal gland. And so when the pineal gland is flowing with honey, we become evergreen, like the Hyperboreans, whose life was a constant celebration. The staff of Bacchus teaches us this. The staff, the climbing ivy, and the honey-secreting pine cone occults the secrets of our anatomy. That rising sexual energy awakens the pineal gland, causing it to secrete. This secretion causes us to enter flow states that are sweet to the soul. If the pineal gland is frozen or crystallized in a state of winter, it is inaccessible and your sexual energy cannot enter within this holy place. This crystallized barrier is like the angel with flaming sword, keeping people out of paradise. And it is the root of all disease. Your energy ends up being stuck in your root chakra, unable to flow. All disease comes from a frozen pineal gland, or not building up and flowing with this divine energy. When sexual energy stagnates in the lower chakra, or lower members of man, he becomes sexually frustrated, and retention becomes impossible. Picture a tree with its roots flowing with sap, but rather than it filling with this life-giving essence, it pours out through a broken branch and spills to the ground. That's what spilling your essence is. When you cleanse your temple and pineal gland, which is the holy of holies, where the presence of God or sexual energy dwells, you become a well of living waters. As you practice this form of spirituality, which your ancestors partook of, and raise your sexual energy, you will see that your body will be in a continual state of spring, always healing itself, and in a constant state of growth. Hyperborea, the Greek version of Eden, is said to be in a continual season of spring, always flourishing, always beautiful. When we begin to harness sexual energy, it becomes an endless river, keeping our energy and spirits evergreen. Thank you so much for watching. Like and share this video with friends, and see you in Eden.